Hi, I'm Zoe with Paranormal Extraction, and I am a supernatural light worker, and I have a show on metaphysics or paranormal phenomenon. Today, we are going to go with the metaphysical side of sound healing with Paula. Now, I've spoken to her before this interview, and I was highly impressed with her website, and she also has a book out called Spiritual Integration, which I read. I just want to let everyone know. But today, I wanted to let you know that she has a great chanting video on, sorry, you know how this goes. This is just live, so I have no idea what I'm doing. She has a great chanting meditation on her website for anxiety. So if you want to learn about some sort of sound, go to her website, and we'll talk all about that on how to get a hold of her. But today we're going to talk about sound healing, and this is all new to me. So let's talk to Paula and see what she has to say. Hi, I kind of flubbed up there today. I got all confused. I was confused.
It happens. It happens to me all the time. I have that Wind Down Wednesday show, and sometimes I just forget where I am, and you just gotta laugh at yourself and move on. I think people like it when they see that we're human, and we are.
Yeah, so I have no idea what I was talking about, but first of all, I wanted to let people know about your book, that you have Spiritual Integration out, okay, which is a great book, okay, that someone can get off your website. But you also have a website, and what is that website? If people want to learn about meditation, or you have a Wind Down Wednesdays on Facebook, how can they find you if they want to find you? And also, what is it? What are you about? I mean, tell us a little bit about you, Paula.
So the website is paulataylorenergy.com. You can also find me on Facebook. I have a page, it's Paula Taylor Energy, and I'm on Instagram and YouTube. All of my stuff is always Paula Taylor Energy, so it's easy to find me that way. If you go to the website, that's the most central way to kind of find everything that I do. So I do have a live Facebook show every Wednesday called Wind Down Wednesday, and all of the previous episodes of that are on my website. It's also out as a podcast now for people who like to listen instead of watching the video. And then I offer one-on-one coaching, intuitive coaching, and sometimes there's some mediumship in there as well. I do energy work, and then I also do workshops and sound healing. So I've got music on the website, I've got meditations. There's a lot of great resources there, and a lot of this stuff is free, so feel free to check it out and use it. I'm all about giving people tools so they can do this work themselves, so they can get to know their own energy and learn how to expand.
Yes, okay, perfect, exactly. All right, so tell us a little bit about today's topic, which is sound healing.
So it's kind of an interesting story, and I'm going to go back a little bit and talk a little bit about my journey, because I think that's the best way to illustrate how this came to me, how I came into sound healing. So I have a background in music. I grew up as a musician. I was a singer. I play clarinet and oboe and piano. And I'm also a diagnostic medical sonographer, which is the fancy term for ultrasound tech. So the people who take pictures, the most common thing people know is pregnancy. So people who take pictures of babies, which is not the specialty I did, but we use it for all sorts of things, looking at the thyroid in the neck, looking at the veins in the legs for blood clot, and that's all based around sound as well. So I have this background that seems kind of separate. It's, music seems very different from medical ultrasound, but sound is at the root of all of it. So I actually know a lot about the physics of sound from learning all of these things. And the science of sound healing is really based on this science that we use in medicine. So for diagnostic medical ultrasound, we use very high frequency sound waves, so sound that you can't hear with your regular human ears, and we send it into the body. It bounces off things in the body, it comes back, and then it's processed through an electrical system to pictures. That's what diagnostic medical ultrasound is. But therapeutic ultrasound is another application of that same high frequency sound wave. And you may have experienced this if you've gone to something like physical therapy. They use high frequency sound to actually destroy tissue. They sometimes destroy scar tissue if you have scar tissue. In the medical community, they use sound waves to actually destroy tumors. So they'll use very focused sound waves and they'll break apart tumors. There's something called lithotripsy, where they use sound to break apart kidney stones. So the science of this is the power of sound. Sound can actually alter our physical reality. It can break barriers down. It can move energy around. It's so powerful. And the way it showed up for me in the last year especially was that I started making healing music. I started doing my own healing sound. I started writing songs. I started doing kirtan, which is a call and response meditation song. And then as I was doing this, I was just doing it because I loved it and it made me feel good. Then I stumbled on the primordial chakra tones that we're going to talk about today. And as I was practicing sound, I was just doing it because I loved it and because it felt good. But then when I started looking back, I noticed all of this physical pain that I have really serious endometriosis and I've had pain for many years. I don't really have pain anymore, very rarely. I have a history of multiple miscarriages, so there was a lot of emotional pain and grief that came with that. And that has really shifted for me as well. So as I looked back on my own journey into sound healing, I realized I had these huge shifts and I wasn't even trying for them. I was just using sound because I loved it. And that's what I love about sound. The sound does the work for you. The sound, it's so simple. Anybody can make sound. Everybody has a voice. And sound healing is not about the beauty of your voice. It's not about, going on a TV show and having people turn their chairs around because you sound so great. It's just about making that vibration in your own body and moving that energy.
Right. So in the beginning, when you were having the discussion, you were talking about the scientific data that surrounds sound, correct? Isn't that what we were just talking about? Okay.
Yeah, and there's a lot of that. I mean, you can learn so much about sound, the physics of how sound works, if you're interested in that kind of thing. Sound is a wave, it travels through the air, and it vibrates. I mean, that's how we hear sound. It comes into our ear and vibrates our eardrum and the little bones in our ears, and then it gets processed in the brain, much like the ultrasound does, so that we hear what's coming in. And the cool thing is, I might make a sound and 3 people will hear a different sound. It's kind of like vision, I call one thing a color and 3 other people might see a different color. So sound is a very personal experience, and it's so powerful that it can actually, as I was saying, it can actually destroy tissue. And that's what happened to me. The sound, I feel like I had these barriers in my life. I'm a musician. Oh, I'm an ultrasound tech. I'm a massage therapist. I had all these separated parts of myself. And the sound just kind of vibrated all those walls away and made me more integrated.
Okay, so what I did was I tried the chanting, and I know that has part that is sound. Now, I know we're talking about something different today, but I really like trying the chanting, which, you really discuss in there. Don't be afraid if your voice sounds funky or you don't really know what you're doing, because at first it seems really weird when you are trying to do it, or whatever, and you don't, or you're not a singer or something like that. But so I started off with that sound. And now what we're talking about today with the primordial sound, what is primordial sound? And did I get that? Is that correct on how I'm saying
Yeah, the primordial chakra tones. So let me start out by saying that I love chant. I chant almost every day. I've been chanting for probably 20 years because it's so simple. And it doesn't have the same, I actually physically lost my voice for many years. I had nodules on my vocal cords. I had a throat chakra kind of block. I didn't want people to hear me. I didn't want people to see me. And my journey through that was actually through chant, because singing is kind of pressured. A lot of people think of it, it's a performance. I'm going to sing for you. Chanting is just making sound. And the word that a lot of people use now for all of this, for just making sound, is toning. So the primordial chakra tones, I mean, really, they're kind of a form of chant, a specialized form of chant or toning.
What is
all of this stuff is in the same family, and we just have different names for it.
Paula, what is chanting? I mean, we've been talking about chanting, but what is chanting? A short little synopsis of what chanting is, just so people know what chanting is before we get into these other sounds.
So to me, chanting is using your voice in a powerful way to move energy. So if I was going to sing something for you, I might sing la 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 la. That's very light and singing sounding. If I'm going to chant for you, oh,
right.
That's a chant. So to me, a chant comes from deep down. It's that kind of visceral, and it's a primordial. That's a word. Again, we're just using terms kind of here that are sort of all describing the same production of sound from a deep place inside. And that's why I love chant. Chant can really move energy. You don't have to be a singer to chant. You don't have to have ever used your voice before. You just open your mouth, ha, and whatever comes out, that's a chant.
Right.
As opposed to that sort of fanciness of singing. Singing's a little fancier. Chant is just making noise.
Okay, so chanting, and now we're going to talk about the primordial sound. Explain to us what is primordial sound, and how can we use this in our lives, and what does it do for us?
So the primordial chakra tones I learned from a woman named Trishas, and you can visit her website. It's soundshifting.com. She's actually got a free book that kind of talks about each tone. She's got some YouTube resources where you can watch.
I was on her website and asked for the free book, and I never got it.
Oh, I think you put your email in, and then it emails it to you. But
no, I never got
we
it.
can figure that out. I have it, so
it's
just a short thing that kind of goes through, and we're going to talk about it today. But I want to give credit because that's where I learned that from.
Yeah, I'm just letting people know that if they do go in and want the free book and they don't get it, then.
Then they can come to my chakra class and learn all about it one-on-one and have some more interaction.
There you go. Okay, I just thought I'd throw that in there really quick because, I just don't want people to feel badly if they go and they don't get one. I don't know, it could be because my email's paranormal extraction. Maybe she didn't want to send it to me.
Well, or maybe it went to your junk. You know how technology, I couldn't even get on
exactly.
Zoom this morning. I was like frantically hitting all these buttons and nothing was happening.
Mm.
So the primordial tones are kind of a specialized form of chant, if you will, or of toning. And there's a tone for each chakra. And if you're familiar at all with the chakras, there's a very traditional idea of what notes go with what chakra. Like if you buy chakra singing bowls, they're going to give you C for the root and D for the sacral, and it's going to move up like that. And they use a Western-based idea of sound, just like I learned when I learned classical music.
Okay, what is a chakra? Because people aren't going to understand what is a chakra.
Sure. So, and this is why I decided to teach a whole course on chakras, because there's so much to say, there's so much information about them, trying to fit it into, a short, it's actually an 8-week course. So there's 7 major chakras in the body. There's a lot of different schools about that, but that's what I'm going with just for simplicity. And the chakras are basically energy centers. So you've got these energy centers in your body that spin, that vibrate, that move. And if you get one that's closed, if you get some stagnation, if the energy's not moving well in one, then it affects different areas of your life. And the primordial tones move you through each chakra to open that energy. And for me, it's the most effective thing I've found to move that energy, again, without effort other than the tones. I'm an energy worker. I've been doing energy work for 20 years. I love it. But it took me a long time to learn how to move energy. You know, it's a skill you have to learn. This moves energy for you just by using your voice, and that's what I love about these tones.
Now, I know that on your wall in the back is a picture of there, of
Yep.
different chakras.
So there's the 7 chakras.
So,
each one has a color.
Right.
They move kind of from the base of the spine up to the top of the head. And in the course, we go into detail about each chakra,
Okay.
what part of the body it's associated with, what are the mental and emotional things, how to balance that chakra, what crystals are good for the chakra. There's so much information about chakras. You could probably study them your whole life and still not know everything there is to know about them.
Well,
but the tones are so simple. That's one of the things I like.
Well, it's really, chakras also, if you have a blocked one, let's just say, it could cause medical problems as well. So if someone wants to heal a medical problem, like let's just say it's their stomach, their lower stomach, okay? And they have a medical problem down there with, let's just say they have, an ulcer or something. What chakra would that be correlated with? Would that be,
that would be your solar plexus, the 3rd chakra. That's the yellow one that's behind me.
Okay.
And so you could do that primordial chant and or the primordial tones, and that's the whole story. Trishas' whole story is that she started using these tones and using singing bowls and music and sound, and she actually healed her. She had end-stage liver disease. So there's limitless possibilities when you're using sound, and I think, everybody has different results. I mean, for me, my 2nd chakra, that orange one at the bottom there, the 2nd one up, that's where I have a lot of issues. I've got bladder issues. I've got endometriosis, which is a uterine problem. I've had all those miscarriages. So when I started doing my tones, I didn't feel much in that chakra. It was very closed. It wasn't really vibrating. And I've been working on myself for years, and I just kept doing this tones practice. And after about maybe 4 to 6 weeks, it was like, oh, I can really feel some stuff in there. And then, I've been doing this practice really regularly now for probably half a year. And I feel like I have a totally different relationship with that part of my body. And I still have issues. I mean, I'm probably never going to carry a pregnancy, and that's okay. I think that's part of my kind of karmic journey. But I don't have the pain that I used to have every day. I don't have the painful periods that I had. So there's definitely something to this.
Well, when I was doing the chanting, and I know this it does have something to do with what you're talking about, but what I felt was in the top of my head, the chakra up there, which is the 7th chakra?
Yeah, that's the crown chakra.
And the 6th chakra. So for my anxiety, because I've been having anxiety, that's where I felt the most anxiety, was in the upper 3, the throat and the 3rd eye and then the crown. So I know that by doing this, it does help release that, and you can actually feel in your body when you're doing this what is happening there or where you're stuck. I mean, is that the same thing as the primordial sound? Is that you can feel it when you're making
Absolutely. So yeah, you're making sound, and I think honestly, it doesn't matter what kind of sound you're making as long as you're making sound. And if you're intuitively connected, then you're going to make the sound you need. And that chant that I have for anxiety, when I feel anxiety as kind of a bouncing around of energy. So the chant that I created for that it's a very simple Kundalini yoga chant, Satnam. It's 2 words. It's easy to learn. That's one of my favorite chants because it's so easy. And you chant at whatever frequency feels good to you, wherever you feel it in the body. And if you start high and move down, then it kind of tamps all that energy down. It brings it back down. It brings it into the body, because a lot of times it's kind of, we're bouncing outside of our body. We get into our mental space and, oh, I got to do this and I got to go here and all this stuff is happening. Right. And the sound just brings it back into the body. It brings us into that calm state again.
Okay, so I'm ready to hear about primordial sound.
Sure. So do you want to go through, we can quickly go through each tone, and there's a different syllable for each tone. It's different than the traditional kind of mantra chant. I think they're actually easier because they're just syllables. It's not even a word that you have to use. And again, it's very individualized. So my first tone is going to be lower than somebody else's tone who talks up here because I have kind of a low voice. So this is all kind of figuring out where it vibrates in your body, how it feels, being patient with yourself. And again, not like, there's no right and wrong in this. That's one of the other reasons I love sound. I'm not on The Voice here, like no one's going to turn their chair around and tell me, oh, that wasn't very good, you were out of tune.
Well, see,
this is about connecting with your body and making a tone that feels good in your body. And if it feels good to you, it's the right tone for you. It's that simple.
That's what I love about when you're speaking about your stuff, is that, you make somebody feel not intimidated by, you always start it off with, if it sounds this way, or it's okay, you're going to be fine. I mean, having those little positive reinforcements really helps when you're doing this kind of work. I mean, I just wanted to say that that's what you're really good at too. So.
Well, thank you. And let me say, I was raised in the classical music world. That's where I have a music degree. And it's such a high pressure situation. If you miss a pivotal note in a performance as a professional musician, like the thing I always say is like, you can get fired for missing one note. Are you going to? No, but that's the feeling that you have. That's the pressure that you're under all the time. Every sound needs to be perfect. Everything needs to be, played in exactly the right place, at exactly the right volume. And it almost killed me. It was too much pressure for me. I lost my joy in music. I lost my joy in sound. And that's not true for everyone. Some people really thrive in that situation. But for me, sound is about joy. Sound is about connection with your body. I don't care how your voice sounds. I didn't hire you to sing an opera for me. I just want you to vibrate. I want my body to vibrate when I make sound. And that pressure is not helpful. That pressure just makes us close down. It made my throat close down to the point that I talk like this for about 3 years. So opening that up I always say when I do presentations, it's not about aesthetics. It's not about beauty. It's not about, la, 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 la. It's not about that. It's about, sometimes it's about screaming. I was talking about that the other day. Sometimes intentional. So I like the word intentional sound. And intentional sound just means any sound you make with intention. It could be chant. It could be singing. It could be these tones. It could be, again, screaming. It could be just discharging energy by making a weird little noise. And I do that. I go around the house. I sing all the time. I make noises. Sometimes I talk to myself. I mean, that's all that vibration of sound, because it's not the same when you think, right? When you talk, you're actually moving the energy around you. You're moving the energy in your body. And when we talk to each other, we are energetically connected through that vibration of our voice.
Right. So give us an example then of these primordial sounds.
Sure. So I'll just move quickly through them and give just a short, I don't want to take too much time. And there's, again, there's some resources where you can learn them if you want to go more into depth. But I feel like, and I keep distracting myself, but I just want to say, make sound, make noise, use your voice. If this doesn't call to you, use it in a different way. Sing along with your favorite song. What's important is that you're making that sound, you're making those vibrations. So the root tone is kind of the lowest tone you can make in your voice. And again, it's going to be different. If you're a man, it's going to be lower. If you're a woman, it's going to be higher. People who have a higher talking voice are going to have higher sound. And the easiest way to kind of figure out your range is an exercise that I call sirens, that I learned back from when I took singing lessons. Oh, So you're basically going from the lowest all the way to the highest. And that's what these 7 tones are going to do. We're going to start in the lowest tone. We're going to end in the highest tone. The root syllable that you're going to use is It's like the word mud. And you'll notice as I go through these are not necessarily pretty sounding tones. Some of them are real weird. You'll hear some like weird kind of like shaking and stuff. That's all good. That's all the sound moving. There's no judgment about how this comes out. So then the sacral tone, that's the second chakra, that's the orange one behind me. So that one is O, or sometimes people use ah, like in awestruck. I think of it like Om, which is that infinite vibration of the universe. So you don't put the M on the end, but it's that same kind of vowel sound. Oh. And when you're learning these, it's great. You can't see me. I've got my hands on my lower belly. It's great to kind of bring your hands. You can feel sometimes under your hands where the vibrations are. And you're going to play around with this to find where your tone is. So I can go, oh, and then I can kind of settle on the place that feels right to me. And again, it's completely individual and there's no right or wrong. It might vary from one day to the next. And that's what I love about this. It really puts you in connection with your body and your intuition. So the third tone, that yellow one behind me, is eh, like E-H, eh. And this is a weird one. This one takes a while to learn and it sounds a little weird. It's got that kind of breathy sound, but this is a really powerful one once you start getting used to it.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds.
Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
It sounds really, I mean, like I'm over here laughing because it's just.
It's weird. Oh, it's so weird.
It's so weird that when you're doing it, I'm thinking to myself, okay. I mean, I believe in it and, you know, I'm interested in taking your class on it, but wow, what a trip. Okay, so what chakra are we on now?
It's absolutely a trip, and it's absolutely okay to laugh at yourself, and it's absolutely okay to laugh at me. Like, that's when, again, we're finding some joy in our sound, and it's a little bit playful. It's like bringing that kind of childlike, you know, play into it, where you maybe made a weird face at your brother or your sister. This is kind of the sound version of that. So the heart chakra, that's the green one behind me, that's ah, A-H, or like amazing. That's how I think of it. And I can actually feel that vibrating right there in my sternum as I sing it. And then the throat, which is light blue, that's ooh. So these are kind of the two, I feel like, most straightforward. And as I teach these, the throat seems to be the one that people connect with the easiest. They feel the vibration the most. And then now we're going to get into the two weirdest ones. These are the two hardest ones to learn.
Okay, I'm ready.
They're the weirdest sounding ones. They're the weirdest looking ones.
Okay, I'm ready.
But I think they're fun. So the third eye, that's the deep blue or indigo. That's this chakra. And that one is...
Wow, tripped out.
So it's a long E, like E, but you're actually starting to send the sound through your nose. And that's why they're a little bit harder to learn. It takes a little bit more time. And that's why in the course, we're doing one tone a week, we're doing one chakra a week, and we're spending time talking about how to make these, practicing them in between. You know, people can ask me questions because I know they're weird, and it takes a while to start to feel comfortable and to even remember what the sound is. So then the seventh one, that crown chakra, that one we usually don't practice as much. So if you're going to do a full practice, you might do 8 tones in each place, but at the crown we usually do 4. it's a very powerful one, and it's also, it's the weirdest kind of pinched one. The sound comes all the way through your nose, so it can make you a little bit kind of lightheaded or dizzy, this one. And it's like you're enjoying food, just
What a trip, huh?
Cool. Nice.
And that's coming completely out my nose. It's not coming out my mouth, my throat at all. I mean, it's coming through my throat and vibrating my vocal cords. But again, they are weird. They're super weird. And when I started doing them, you know, you feel kind of silly. You know, my husband, I always closed the door because I was like, you know, I'm going to do my weird tones practice. But like, even just doing them right now, it's like taking a bath. That's the way I feel. I feel clean. I feel like things are moving. I feel expanded, especially when you get into those upper tones. And the weirdness of learning it was worth it to me, because now I use them all the time. Sometimes I tone while I'm driving, obviously with my eyes open and watching the road. But if I feel like I need to discharge energy, I know where I can go. You know, if I'm like, oh, I'm feeling like weird here, I can go to that off or the heart tone. And it's just another tool in your toolbox. Chanting is the tool, you know, again, just using your voice is a tool in an intentional way. So we're talking about setting the intention that you're going to connect with yourself, or that you're going to expand, or that you're going to heal, whatever your intention is, and then just making that sound. And this is just another tool you can use to make those vibrations expand in your own energetic field.
Okay, that was a very, very good explanation. I mean, very good. I have nothing to say, because, I mean, everything you just said, I was going to actually ask you, you know, well, how could this help somebody? And you just explained it.
The other thing I'll say too is that as you get comfortable with these tones, you can start making them without making noise if you have to. So I can think that in my mind and feel my root chakra start to expand. So if I'm in, say, the waiting room of a doctor's office and there's a lot of like, energy in there and it's crowded and I'm feeling like, I can vibrate that chakra just by thinking about it. Or sometimes when I'm walking my dogs, I'll do the tones just really, really quietly, so that unless somebody was right next to me, they wouldn't hear me. And you can start to play with this and use it more often. I hate doing dishes. It's like one of my least favorite things. So I tone while I'm doing the dishes, because then that gives me that expansion and it turns it into more of a meditative experience for me. I think that I've been meditating for a long time, and it's really hard for a lot of people to meditate. It's hard to focus.
Yes.
It's hard to know what to do with your mind. And the sound takes that away completely. You focus on the sound, and then the mind empties, and then the energy settles, and you have that same feeling you get from meditating, but you have the sound to focus on.
Well, and I think it's really important too that there's a lot of people who just, they can't meditate. I've talked to a lot of people, they're just like, I can't, I fall asleep, I just get too restless, and my thoughts are racing, whatever it is, they just don't, they've tried it and it doesn't work. With this, it's more for somebody who is, I think, a little higher strung like me, where I like to be doing things. So if I'm doing something and making a sound, that's easier for me than sitting down and doing a 10 to 20 minute meditation. It's a lot easier for me. So that's why I'm interested in learning it, because I can do it anywhere, and I can do it in my car or in the grocery store or wherever I'm at, and I don't have to be sitting in the lotus position or straight up or laying down to be able to get to the whatever I need at that time.
Absolutely. And I did a Wind Down Wednesday maybe 2 months ago where I talked about, I had read a post that somebody made about trauma. And I think all of us have traumas in our background. You know, you live to a certain age, you're going to have some trauma. And when you try to meditate, that trauma response comes up a lot of times. So you get the racing of the thoughts, or you get your heart feels like you're racing. You know, being in complete silence like that is not necessarily available to us when we're at the beginning of dealing with trauma and trying to heal trauma. So using sound, you might find eventually that you can do a silent meditation because you've been using that sound to train your mind. We can actually change the neural network in our mind, the way that all our synapses fire and the way the pathways that we create in our mind. That's one of the reasons I love meditation so much. But if you can't do it, you can't do it. So if you use something like sound or chant, mantra, anything that gives your mind something to focus on, then you're doing that same work of retraining the brain. And eventually, it's like any other practice. You'll get to the point where you'll be like, oh, I can do this. I can do a 10 or 20-minute silent meditation. Or maybe you never need to because you just keep doing the sound and that's what you love. There's no rules with this. And that's one of the things I love